Namaste everyone. Welcome to Advaita Vedanta Satsang House. The ongoing sessions are on Bhagavad Gita from an Advaita perspective, offered by Bindoji, and we are on chapter 4, beginning on chapter 4. The replays of all the previous rooms are available in Clubhouse, or you could go into the chat and the three links provided. One is a YouTube channel called Advaita Retold. The other two are just repositories of the same talks on Apple Podcast and Spotify. There is also a book written by Artemisia titled Imaginary Door. That's also based on the Advaita insights provided by Bindoji. So with that, I'll close the chat and hand raising when Bindoji is conducting the class, and after which we'll have some time to interact with Bindoji regarding any clarifications. Thank you very much, Bindoji. Over to you.
Thank you, Prakash. Namaste and welcome to all of you. Let me do my invocation. Namo Brahma Adibhyo Brahma Vidya Sambradaya Kartrubhyo Vamsharishibhyo Mahadbhyo Namo Gurubhyaha Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loga Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashivratau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murtibheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The Gita Dhyana Shlokam. Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudramarutaha Stunandiri Vyaistavai Vedai Sangapadakramो Vanishadaihi Gayandi Yam Samaga Dhyanavastita Tadgatena Manasa Pashyandi Yam Yogino Yasyandam na vidussura suragana Devaya tasmai namaha Devaya tasmai namaha Devaya tasmai namaha. So in the third chapter, we saw that the question of Arjuna, if both action and knowledge are prescribed to me and you say that knowledge is superior to action, why are you forcing me into action? The entire chapter, except the 36th verse, where Arjuna again asks a question, is by Krishna explaining the question to the satisfaction of Arjuna. Even though he is recommending karma yoga, yajnartha karma, that is the duty to be performed without fruits of action is karma yoga. And the same duty, when offered to the Lord, becomes yajnartha. And that is what the Jagat Chakra, that is how the cosmic cycle is being maintained by the nature, for which we become part of the nature. And then is the statement about what is this if, what is this force? Even when I know that I should not be doing things out of my duty, there is some force which is working in me, as if pulled by that force, I engage in things where I am not supposed to be engaging with. For the answer to that, Krishna said that Kama eva, Krodha eva. The two enemies which waylay you in your path of spirituality are Kama and Krodha, the desire and the anger. Anger is nothing but when desire is prohibited or stopped or deviated, that the force for the desire is converted into anger. But these two are recommended as the highway bandits whom you should be careful in your spiritual highway. And Krishna says the location of them are in the Indriya Mano Buddhi, the senses and the mind with intellect. The senses are dragged by the objects of senses and taken away from the purpose in which they are supposed to be working. And the mind is now controlled by that desire of the Indriya and the contact. That is the place where the contact point between the senses and the sense object is the place where Raga Dvesha is generated. Raga is attraction, Dvesha is repulsion. And once these two happen, the Raga or Dvesha happen, the mind will be now in tune with the sense organs. And when the mind is in tune with the sense organ, the intellect is also now clouded with the desires, etc., of because of kama and krodha, do not have the intelligence to identify what is right, what is wrong, or what is to be done, what is not to be done. These activities are called the ignorance, and thereby identifying ourselves as the individual which is in this world desired by pushed by the desires and controlled by the sense organs. This was again explained in the Kathopanishad also. The only way, if we want to get out of the clutches of these two bandits, tri-highway bandits, are by developing the knowledge and abiding in the self as our true nature. For that is where the Karma Yoga as a preparatory measure helps us in keeping the desires under check when we offer that into a higher pedestal or to the feet of the Lord. Thereby, the repeated action will bring Chitta Shuddhi, the intent or the latent impressions and the tendencies in us to get attracted by the sense organs to the sense objects will get reduced. And when that Chitta Shuddhi is maturing, we will also develop a serious development in the goals to achieve the knowledge, Jnana Nishta. And when that Jnana Nishta is happening, is when the Sattva Shuddhi is taking place. That is, the overall person becomes aligned with knowledge towards the higher knowledge. And once we recognize that we are not the body, mind and intellect, and abiding in the self, that abidance in the self, we can negate the lower self, which is the ego-based individuality. This is what Krishna has advised Arjuna. Now the next chapter, instead of Jnana Yoga, it is called Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. Jnana Karma Sannyasa. There are three words, Jnana, Karma and Sannyasa. We will see how this chapter is unfolding. And as a prelude to this chapter, Shankaracharya's 3 sentences are there, which we will go through it. Yo ayam yogaha adhyaya dvayena uktaha jnana nishta lakshanaha. This yoga, which has been taught in the 2 chapters so far, that is chapter 2 and chapter 3, is characterized by the steadfastness in knowledge, jnana nishta. Sannyasaha karma yoga upayaha. Together with karma, renunciation, it has been, renunciation means renunciation not as per the ochre robe and going to the sanya ashrama, etc. Renunciation for the fruits of action. Actions along with the renunciation of the fruit of action is karma yoga, and as it means. Yasmin vedartha parisamaptaha. In this yoga, karma yoga, the entire purport of the Vedas reaches its culmination. The whole Vedas is teaching us this yoga of karma and sannyasa. For that, Veda has said that, where Krishna said itself, he has advised pravritti lakshana and nivritti marga. Pravritti lakshana and nivritti lakshana. That is karma yoga and jnana yoga. Karma yoga for pravritti marga and jnana yoga for nivritti marga. For those, that is for, it contains both the paths characterized by action, which is for the pravritti, and the path characterized by the renunciation, which is the nivritti. Gitasu cha sarvasu ayameva yogaha vivikshitaha bhagavata. Bhagavata means by the Lord, by Krishna. It is intended that this alone, yoga alone, is what is intended. Gitasu sarvasu ayameva. Throughout the whole Gita, the teaching is on this very yoga. Ataha parisamaptam vedartam mannuanaha tam vamsha shakathena stauti bhagavan. Therefore, considering this yoga to be the complete culmination of the meaning of Vedas, Krishna praises this by recounting his lineage, vamsha, kathanena. This short paragraph is extremely important because Shankaracharya here gives the meta-interpretation for the entire Gita. Jnana Nishta Lakshana. What did he mean by Jnana Nishta Lakshana? The final goal is not action, devotion or meditation, even though Krishna is talking about action, devotion and meditation in Gita. Jnana Nishta, the steadfast abidance in the knowledge of the self, is what is the goal of the abidance in knowledge. Meaning, realization that Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, and firm abidance in that knowledge, and freedom from doership. Only when you know that you are the Atma or the Brahman and abide in that knowledge, we can be free from the doership, akartrutva. That means kartrutva bhava or bhoktrutva bhava, both. Thus, chapter 2, starting from the 11th verse onwards, already teaches the self. Natu eva aham jatu nasam. That is how this started. The self is unborn, unchanging, eternal. That knowledge is the core of the teaching. Then, why did Krishna teach Karma Yoga? Karma Yoga Upayaha. Karma Yoga is not the final path. It is the means. the purpose to purify the mind. And without purification of the mind, knowledge cannot arise in that antakarana. This is exactly how the Gita is approaching this. Now the sannyasa, which is also being addressed here by Shankaracharya, he inserts it subtly, renunciation here. For him, the true knowledge requires renunciation of the doership. This does not merely mean that external monkhood. It means aham karta, that I am the doer. That notion must disappear from all of us. We are never the doers of any action. We are the knowers. The doing is happening in the body, mind, intellect complex. And we objectify the body, mind, intellect complex as the knower. Thus, Karma Yoga prepares the mind. The renunciation or the sannyasa removes the doership. And when these two happens, the knowledge reveals Brahman. You don't have to do anything specifically for revealing the knowledge of that Aham Brahmasmi. That is, already you are, but the avidya due to kama and krodha are the ones which you are making us feel that the lower self is what I am, and therefore the doership and the bhoktriship, that enjoyership, is mine. That will get renounced by the proper knowledge, and that knowledge will make us abide in the true self. Yasmin Vedartha Parisamaptaha. The entire meaning of the Veda culminates here. The entire Veda means the complete Purva Mimamsa and Uttara Mimamsa culminates here. Why? Because Vedas ultimately aim at Brahma Vidya only. The whole Veda is for knowing the Brahman. The preparatory stages are given in the Purva Mimamsa, and the Uttara Mimamsa, the Vedanta or the Upanishads, talk about the Brahma Vidya. And it is in that Vedas, the words like Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasi, Prajnanam Brahma, etc. becomes condensed Upanishadic teaching. That is why Shankaracharya calls this Sarvopanishado Gava. That means sung by all the Upanishads. That is the only truth, that Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, Prajnanam Brahma, etc. He is addressing Pravritti and Nivritti as two Vedic orientations. Pravritti Marga, the path of action, examples the rituals, Vedic rituals, dharma, social duties, and our social duties include the family dharma, the society dharma, the Jajya dharma, all dharmas. All that is for order in the society and purification of the individual by the karma. When we do it, the karma as a nishkama karma, as a karma yoga. The nivritti marga, or the path for emancipation or withdrawal, is renunciation of the doership and the enjoyership, and acquiring the knowledge through jnana nishta. And when the jnana nishta takes place, self-realization takes place by natural process. And that itself, once the self is realized, that knowledge with which you are realizing the self is itself the liberation or moksha. The Gita integrates both, but subordinates the action, pravritti dharma, compared to the knowledge. Action prepares, knowledge liberates. Gitasu cha sarvasu. The insistence of Shankaracharya that the whole Gita is one central teaching not many, not conflicting, not pluralistic. The central teaching, knowledge of the self leading to liberation, is the theme of Bhagavad Gita. Everything else is subservient to it, or it serves that purpose. So karma is a preparation for that. Bhakti, devotion, is to teacher, and the Brahman is for developing the Shraddha in the teaching. Dhyana, concentration, is for aligning the mind and the intellect towards the Jnana Nishtha, and knowledge liberates the individual who is in this path. So Krishna talks about a lineage in the story in the chapter 4 beginning itself. Imam Vivaswade Yogam Proktavan Aham Avyayam. I taught this yoga to Vivaswan. That is how the chapter starts. So Shankaracharya explains why it is. It's a rhetorical praise technique. By giving divine lineage, Krishna shows that the teaching is ancient, and it is authoritative, and it is sacred. And this is called the Vamsastuti, the praising through the lineage. You might have heard me also doing that, Namo Brahmadibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartrubhyo Vamsha Rishibhyo. That is the praise of the lineage of gurus to whom I did my invocation when I started the class. Practical significance is Shankara's paragraph quietly resolves many confusions about Gita. We saw that in the beginning when we discussed about introduction of Gita. There were commentaries prior to Shankaracharya, and those commentaries were confusing, and people, they were not able to follow Gita as intended by Krishna. And when Shankaracharya wrote the Bhashya for the Gita, it became clear and is being followed by many people after that. Gita is not a preliminary text for action. The modern interpretation is that Gita teaches doing our duty. Shankaracharya disagrees to that. Duty is preparatory. It teaches Gita duty, no doubt about it, but it is preparatory. Liberation can come only from the knowledge of the self. Karma Yoga is a psychological preparation where we remove our ego, attachment, agitation, desire, etc., resulting in the purity of the mind. And without this, no knowledge can arise or even stick with us. So the Gita, when unites both the streams of action and the knowledge, that is ritualist tradition and Upanishadic knowledge, there is a bridge between them, and that is Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita acts as a bridge between the Vedic rituals and the Upanishadic knowledge, because Krishna explains the lineage, the authority, and from his personal viewpoint, he explains every aspect of it, which shows that doing the duty is preparatory and helps us in achieving our clarity, because of which the Jnana Nishtha and the knowledge can take place. Liberation is knowledge. Jnanat evatu kaivalya. It is not an achievement. Knowledge is not an achievement. We are Swarupa, Jnana Swarupa. We don't produce knowledge or liberation. We just recognize us when it was not being recognized. That never I was ever bound by my body, mind, intellect complex and the actions and duties and responsibilities, etc. All the time I was pure and untouched by Nirvishesha, Nirguna, Nirakara, Purna Atma. And that recognition and thereafter abiding in the self is the Jnana Nishta. So to sum up, the Gita teaches the single yoga, that is Jnana Yoga, knowledge of the self, where Karma Yoga and Sannyasa, Bhakti, meditation, Dhyana, etc. serve as preparatory means. And this teaching represents the final culmination of Vedic revelation. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. Now Krishna is starting the 4th chapter. Imam vivasvate yogam proktavan aham avyayam. Vivaswan manave praha manurikshvagave babravit. Sri Bhagavan, Krishna, is saying that aham avyayam imam yogam vivasvate proktavan. That is, imam means this, referring to the yoga. Vivasvate means vivasvat. The vivasvat is the sun god. That is the light. Even though here it is referred to as sun god, it is actually the knowledge itself as the light. In Brahma, which is Nirguna Nirvishesha, there is nothing which is saying. It is not even in the form of light. But as a light of knowledge, when it starts projecting, the light is first needed. Therefore, Yogam Proktavan means this yoga, which I am going to tell you, Arjuna, I have told this in the beginning of the creation to the very light which projected the entire creation. So this is the Imam Yoga, Karma Yoga Lakshana, characterized by Karma Yoga, but immediately signals that this yoga is not mere ritual action. It is the yoga that, when matured, results in jnana. The choice of Imam, this very one, or this right one, or this yoga, underscores that what was transmitted primordially is identical to what is that I am going to teach you, O Arjuna. The yoga is Sanatana. It is ever fresh. It is not a historically contingent knowledge. Aham avyayam. Aham, Krishna is referring himself as the Paramatma or Brahman. As Brahman, I have provided this. Proktavan really meaning having declared or have declared. It is a word with pra and vak, which means to say, to declare, to announce, or to dictate. All those things can be meant that here. But he is using an adjective for aham avyayam. Avyayam means the imperishable or undecaying. To show that the Brahman, Atman, which projects the knowledge through the light of knowledge from the sun god onwards, that is a representation of sun god, is what is indicated here. Therefore, the teaching occurred at a time beyond the beginning of time. There is no historical reckoning to this. So this avyayam applied to yoga and to Krishna, or even it can be applied to the yoga itself also. So both it is applicable. As Brahman or Paramatma, Krishna is avyayam. And he is also teaching the yoga, which is also imperishable or undecaying as a knowledge. So it is philosophically crucial to understand this aspect, indicating that this yoga, being rooted in the immutable Atman or Brahman, is itself imperishable. Unlike the action karma, which is savaya avyaya, means subject to decay, producing perishable results. All karma has a beginning in time. So before the time started itself, this yoga was present in the knowledge of light of knowledge. Therefore, it is imperishable at that stage. Then, when it is projected, it was transmitted to down the line through the creations, which becomes subsequently as karma, not as a karma yoga. This anticipates the Advaitic thesis. Karma itself is binding and decaying because it is within the time span. Only when it is taken up to jnana level does the karma yoga becomes avyaya. The entire parampara thus transmits not mere ritual injunctions, but the vision of the imperishable self itself. The second line is Vivaswan Manave Praha. The Vivaswa, the first light. Manave Praha, to the Manu, Vivaswata Manuhu, the subsequent recipient, who is the beginning of the Manava, who were the creators of the world. Prajapati. Aha means, Praha means, again, it is a word which using the same meaning, but in a different, time span, to indicate a different time span. See, that perfect form. That is why aha means declared or taught or uttered. So it carries a tone of authoritative declaration, more elevated than ordinary saying or teaching, watch or brew. Three different verbs using aham proktavan, I declared. Vivaswan praha, that light of knowledge declared to Manu. Then Manu abravit, Manu said. So the three words of the traditional teaching is a deliberate literacy variation. Shankaracharya does not treat as mere ornament. He has given this a very important aspect. So Vivatsvat is the Aditya or the solar dynasty deity, lord of cosmic order, Rita. That primordial teaching flows through the light of sun is significant for Advaitins. The sun illumines everything without being touched by what it illumines. A natural symbol of witness consciousness, Sakshi Chaitanya, is symbolified in the sun. The transmission does not diminish the teaching. The yoga remains avyaya through each transmission. Even the reflected light of the sunlight is equivalent to brighten up a room. Then comes Manu Ikshwagave Abravit. The Manu taught this. Abravit means said or taught. Ikshwagu. Ikshwagu is a dynasty king who subsequent to Manu. So subsequent to Manu, Ikshwagu has come. So Ikshwagu Abravit. So what is they saying? Manu is Vivaswata Manu, progenitor of the humanity, Manushya. Ikshwagu is the first king of the solar dynasty, Surya Vamsha. The lineage, therefore, follows the Dharma Rajas. Shankaracharya notes that the teaching is entering the human historical time via a royal lineage, appropriate to Kshatriya Dharma. This descent to Vyavaharika transmission prepares Arjuna, who stands at the end of this very lineage. And to us today, we. So, Krishna speaks this first person Aham, ascertaining himself as the ultimate source of transmission, not merely one link in it. So if you go for a deeper reading, Shankaracharya in his Bhashya is identifying Krishna with the not non-historical Brahman principle. When Krishna says, Aham Proktavan, I declared this, at the beginning of the cosmic time, before time started. The logical question that Arjuna will in fact ask, Aparam Bhavato Janma, Param Janma Vivaswata, is already implicit in it. That is, how can this mortal-bodied Krishna have spoken to the sun is the question which is now tinkling in the mind of Arjuna. Shankaracharya reads this as Krishna's covert disclosure of his Parameshwara nature or the Parabrahma nature. The Aham here is not an empirical Aham of the body, mind, Ahankarta, but the Aham of the pure Chit or the Pratyekatma. When we say Aham Brahmasmi, that Aham is not the body-mind complex which is saying Aham Brahma. It is the Pratyekatma or the inner Atma or the inner self. That is Nitya, Avyaya and Asanga. Just as the Sakshi in the Brihadaranya Upanishad says the unseen seer, the unheard hearer. That is the way in which Brihadaranya denotes that. Here Krishna as Parameshwara or Paramatma is the witness, eternal witness teacher who is never actually born and never actually teaches the empirical sense. Yet, from the standpoint of Vyavaharika reality, the transmission appears to have occurred. That is why the qualifier Avyayam on both yoga and wellness on Krishna is doubly resonant. The yoga is imperishable because its source is pure Brahman or Atman. Karma yoga, when served from the Atman ground, would be Savayava, bearing perishable fruits, which is indicated Chiniye, Punye, Martilogam, Vishanti. So that is exactly where it is shown. Only the yoga grounded in jnana of the Avyaya Atman itself will be Avyaya. Therefore, this verse is a compressed Prakarana tree statement for the entire chapter of 4th, where Karma Yoga is being transmitted, but it is an Avyaya only so far. Therefore, the Parampara, Guru Shishya lineage from the Brahman to Vivaswata Manu, Vivaswata to Vivaswan, Vivaswan to Vivaswata Manu, Manu to Ishwagu, Ishwagu, and then downward. The imperishability is because it is coming from Atman or Brahman itself as a grounded yoga. Krishna as Aham is the eternal witness, not the empirical ego of the individual. The transmission as Vyavaharika and Paramarthika. The Krishna Aham is Paramarthika and the teaching is in Vyavaharika. Pratyagatma, who is teaching this, is Krishna himself. When Krishna says Aham Proktavan. So, in the first verse, Shankaracharya is refuting the karma, jnana karma samuchaya, dismantling any equation of karma with ultimate means, insisting that karma is at the best a sadhana that purifies the antakarana for the liberating soul who wants kevala jnanena eva moksha, only through this thing. The commentary on the Shankaracharya will read like that. Imam adhyaya dvayena uktam yogam vivasvate adityaya sargadau proktavan aham. I taught this yoga which has been explained in the 2 chapters preceding to this to Vivaswan, the sun god, at the beginning of creation, sargadau. Jagat paripalya idirnam kshatriyanam bala adhanaya. What is that balam adhanaya? For strengthening whom? Kshatriyana, the Kshatriyas, who are the protectors of the world. Jagat paripalayitrina. You will find in the Upanishad and many Upanishad, this knowledge of Atma Vidya or Brahma Vidya is most of the places in the hands of Kshatriya kings who teaches that to the Brahmanas. Because when they learn the yoga, when the teaching of the Veda, etc., their doubts are clarified by the Ajatashatru, the Pipalada, etc., all of them. That is for strengthening the Kshatriyas who are protectors of the world. There is a reason why it is being told to the Kshatriyas from the beginning by the Brahman itself. Tena bala yogena yukta samartha bhavanti brahma parirakshitam. When they are endowed with the strength of that yoga, which is the avyaya yoga, they become capable of protecting that knowledge itself, Brahman as knowledge. Brahma kshatre paripalite jagat paripalayitum alam. When Brahman and the Kshatriya, the spiritual authority and the royal power, are protected, that alone is sufficient for protection of the world. Avyayam avyaya phalatvad. This yoga is imperishable because the fruit of the yoga is also imperishable because it is the light which is being transmitted. And the light, when it is transmitted, it doesn't get diminished. Nahi asya yogasya samyak darshana nishtalakshanasya mokshakyam phalam vyeti. For the fruit of this yoga, which is characterized by the steadfastness in the right knowledge, namely liberation, never perishes. Therefore, mokshakyam phalam na vyeti. Sacha Vivaswan manave praha. And that knowledge, Vivaswan, the first sun god, taught to Manu. Manu ikshwakave swaputraya adirajaya abravit. Manu told to his son Ikshwaku, the first king, that yoga taught is the same, that jnana yoga. Adhyaya dvayena uktam yogam. That is the chapter 2 of the self-knowledge and chapter 3 as karma yoga as preparation. Thus, the yoga transmitted through the solar lineage is Jnana Nishta, steadfast knowledge of the self. It is not a ritual system or a political doctrine, but it is an Upanishadic wisdom adapted by the rulers for their just ruling and not ego-based ruling. Why teach the self-knowledge to the kings? The reason is Jagat Paripalitrinam Kshatriyanam Baladhanaya. To strengthen the Kshatriyas who protect the world. But what kind of strength? Yoga strength. What is that? Yoga gives the inner sovereignty. A king without yoga will be ruled by anger, greed or fear. Whereas a king with yoga will rule detached, self-controlled and just. Thus yoga becomes a moral foundation for political power for the kings. And protecting Brahman, there is a word, Samartha Bhavanti Brahma Parirakshitam. They become capable of protecting Brahman means, that sounds strange, But how can Brahman need a protection? Shankaracharya does not mean protecting the absolute. He means protecting the Brahman. There is not Brahman, but Brahman is there, the Veda. So, to protecting the Vedas, Brahma Palipalayitrum, Parirakshitum means Veda, to protecting the Vedas. Brahman has the Vedic knowledge and the Brahmanical tradition. The tradition of Veda being taught and practiced. Preservation of Vedic learning. Protection of spiritual culture, safeguarding teachers and seekers. So Shankaracharya summarizes it beautifully saying, Brahma Kshatriya Paripalite Jagat Paripaletum Alam. Alam means that is enough. If Brahman or the Kshatriya is protected, that is the kings are protected through this yoga and the Vedic tradition is protected, the world is protected. The two pillars, knowledge and power, spiritual vision, power, political power. If one of them collapses, the civilization collapses. Why yoga is imperishable? Avyayam avyaya phalatvad. That is the imperishable nature of the phalam, which is moksha. Moksha is imperishable. Liberation can never be temporary. Therefore, yoga is avyaya. The lineage is to express the authenticity. From Brahman onwards, it is being transmitted. So, Advaita is often accused of being world-negating. Shankaracharya implies that opposite. The world is protected when rulers possess self-control, detachment and wisdom. Therefore, the inner enlightenment produces outer order. Dharma requires both the wisdom and the power. Without dharma, the power becomes tyranny, and without, the Shastra dharma, the wisdom becomes powerless. Therefore, Gita's yoga is also called Avyaya. Samyak Darshana Nishta. Steadfastness in right vision. Samyak Darshana means right vision. Nishta means steadfastness. The goal is not merely intellectual understanding, but the abidance in this knowledge of I am the witnessing consciousness. That recognition is moksha, which never perishes. So, the first shloka is the Lord teaching the eternal yoga of self-knowledge, that at the dawn of creation to the solar lineage of kings, so that the rulers grounded in the spiritual wisdom could protect dharma and this yoga. And this yoga is imperishable because the fruit, which is liberation, is never perishing or it never ceases. The second verse is Evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo vidu sa kalena iha mahada yoge nashta parandapa. Evam parampara praptam. In this manner, parampara praptam means obtained or handed down through the successions. Parampara means the lineage, successions. Imam rajarshaya vidu. These royal sages who was transmitting this knowledge, vidu, they knew and have known that yoga, avyayam yoga. Saha means that yoga, kalena iha, by time in this world, that mahata means that vast, agreeing with kalena, mahata kalena. So the great time, when the time passes by, yoga nashta parandava. This yoga, subsequent passing, gets lost or perished or destroyed. Even though the knowledge is avyaya, the practice and the transmission is what is getting lost. So he is using Arjuna a word, parantapa, the scorcher of foes or enemies. So, evam parambara proktam imam yogam rajashreyo vidu means the royal sages knew this yoga received through the succession. Sa yoga kalena mahada kalena iha nashta parantapa asti parantapa. That yoga, O Arjuna, has been lost here in this vast time. So here, it is a statement by Krishna that it has been lost in the Guru Shishya Parambara over a period of time. Therefore, the transmitted insight into Avyaya Atman is what is being now not being practiced. To explain the Rajarshi, Shankaracharya include Kshatras from Brahma to Rajarshis typically by Janaka, etc. In the, they knew about it. Not merely by intellectual acquaintance, but with yoga as anubhava, direct realization. These Rajarshis of this yoga knew the Avyaya yoga because they themselves were established in the Pratyekatma. This is not a knowledge about the self, but about the knowledge as self. So the difference between this knowledge, this yoga, jnana yoga or karma yoga through which you attain that jnana, that knowledge is not about the self, but knowledge as self itself. Atma Sakshatkara. The jnana and appearance of action are compatible, which we have seen in the last this thing. Even the jnanis were asked to act in the world, the society, as exemplified persons which others can follow. Yadyatacharati shreshtastastate vedoro jana sayat pramanam gurude lokastata nuvartate. It was told in the last chapter. Yet, they are akartas. They are not having the kartrutva bhava. But the insight of Atman is ever present in them. Therefore, they never become an agent of action. The kala, which is mentioned in the Mahada Kalena, indicating accumulated weight of samsara pravaha, ceaseless flow of cosmic time, that erodes even the finest transmissions. This directly invokes the avarana, veiling function of ignorance. Just as avidya veils the Atman in the individual, kala veils Brahma Vidya in the collective transmission. The word Iha here in this world signals the Vyavaharika plane. It is in the Vyavahara, the realm of Nama Rupa, and the historical becoming that the yoga is getting lost. At the Paramarthika level, the yoga is Avyaya. It is never lost or imperishable. It is Nitya, self-luminous, Swaprakasha, ever available as Pratyekatma itself. But this Nashta word in the shloka means it is not that Avyayatvam has gone, imperishability has come into it. It has disappeared from the view, not annihilated, but lost from the plane of human transmission. The Nashta applies to the Parambara, to the chain of transmission, not to the yoga itself. Therefore, Krishna addresses Arjuna as Parantapa precisely at this moment. That implication is being that now Arjuna, the Chhatra duty or your duty as a Kshatriya, not to merely win a battle, but to receive this knowledge and embody this yoga and transmit it in the generations to come. Becoming himself a Rajarshi who knows and transmits it. Therefore, the Advaitic undertone is the true Parantapa is one who burnt the enemies of Avidya Kama Karma, where enemies were described in previous chapter. So the paradox of Avyaya Yoga being Nashta is, if the yoga is Avyaya and how can it be Nashta? Shankaracharya resolves this with a characteristic precision that yoga as Atma knowledge, Atma Jnana, Atma Swarupa Jnana is intrinsically Avyaya. It cannot be perishable. Because the Atman itself is its content and its ground, both Adhisthana and the Vastu. What is Nashta is the Parampara, the human historical vehicle of transmission. The teaching has disappeared from Vyavaharika circulation, not from the Paramarthika reality. This mirrors the Advaitic analysis of Avidya. Ignorance does not truly produce anything. It merely veils Avaranavati, what is already and always self-luminous. Similarly, Kala does not destroy yoga. It veils its transmission. It is a Maya Shakti. Kala as Maya Shakti is what Shankaracharya identifying it. Mahan Kala with the Avarana Vikshepa function of Maya is what it is being done. The Kala in the Advaita Vyavaharika category belongs to the Maya's domain. That what is great, Avyaya Yoga is lost by time is therefore almost a Maya paradox. The Nitya appears to be overcome by the Anitya. But this appearance itself is Maya. From a Paramarthika point of view, nothing has been lost. Krishna's statement is made from within the Vyavaharika frame only. Compassionately meeting Arjuna where he stands. The Rajarshi as Advaitic ideal is the Jivan Mukti expressed through action. They knew the yoga, meaning they were established in Akartrutva and Abhukrutva. Yet they ruled, they acted, they fought, everything they did. This is the living proof of Jnana does not negate the appearance of action. It transforms its adhyasa basis, and the Rajarshi acts without the superimposition of the doership, adhyasa. Exactly the state toward which Krishna is steering Arjuna through this Gita. That is the purpose of the Krishna's teaching. The preparing Krishna as an avatara theology for Arjuna is by announcing this. The yoga laws here in the second verse. Krishna creates a narrative occasion for his own teaching. Arjuna is receiving this direct transmission from the original source because aham proktavan. He said that I am the one who taught the light, the sun, the god of sun from before the creation of the world. So the original source, Krishna, is the same Krishna, now bypassing the broken parampara. But Shankaracharya's deeper point is that Krishna as Parameshwara does not merely restore the lost tradition, he is the yoga eternal source. Because in the 10th chapter when the Vibhuti Yoga, he says, Aham Adihi Devana, I am the beginning of Devas. Every avatara moment is simply self-disclosure of the always present Avyaya. Atman into historical visibility. So the Bhashya is just 3 lines, 3 sentences which we will see that. Evam kshatriya parampara praptam imam rajarshaya rajanascha te rishayascha rajarshayaha viduhu imam yogam. Thus having transmitted this through the lineage of Kshatriya, the royal sages, they knew this yoga. Sa yoga kalena iha mahada dirgena nashta vichinna sampratayaha samvrita. But over the long lapse of time, this yoga became lost in the lineage of transmission, having been broken. E Parantapa, Atmana Vikshepa Bhuta Para Iti Uchyante. Tan Shaurya Tejo Yoga Tejoga Gavastibihi Bhanuriva Tapayati iti Parantapa Satrudan Ityartaha. So the word the word is explained by Parantapa means those who stand opposed to the oneself are called others, means enemies. One who scorches them with the rays of his valor and brilliance, like the sun, is called a Parantapa, scorcher of foes. That means he is called the scorcher of enemies, but here Shankaracharya is saying that he is called the one who is opposed to the self is the otherness or the others as enemies. So that is being destroyed due to his valor and brilliance, like the sun. Durbalan ajijendriyan prapya nashtam yogam imam upalabhye lokam cha apurushartha sambandhina. Having fallen into the hands of weak people who have not mastered their senses, this yoga became lost. And the world too became devoid of the connection with the human goals, purusharthas. There are 3 profound ideas in the transmission of the spiritual knowledge. One is the Rajarshi, because they were the kings who were knowing and practicing and living the Atma-jnana. They possessed the knowledge. Examples are Janaka, Ikshu, Yudhishthira, etc. The spiritual knowledge survives only through Sampradaya. Vichinna Sampradaya, when he said that the lineageal transmission was broken, the knowledge disappears not because truth changes, but because the teaching tradition collapsed. Advaita strongly insists on the authentic transmission of Sampradaya. Teacher to disciple to teach, then disciple becomes a teacher, and then teacher to disciple. This cycle continues. But without continuity, the scripture becomes misunderstood. And that is why the yoga was lost. Durbalan ajindriya, because in between, weak people who could not understand this by doing the karma yoga, etc., and uncontrolled senses, they became pleasure loving and forgot about the importance of the knowledge. And such persons cannot sustain the subtle knowledge, because self-knowledge requires dispassion, discipline, and clarity. If there is any weakness in them, the teaching degenerates. Therefore, the purushartha or apurushartha sambandhim, disconnected from the human goal of dharma, artha, kama, moksha. When this wisdom is decay, the society loses the orientation towards this goal. So, in the tradition, when this was lost, the knowledge, human life loses direction. So the yoga of self-knowledge was once known by the king sages through living tradition. But when the lineage was broken and became weak, undisciplined people dominated, and the teaching disappeared from the world. The world lost in this connection to the true aims of human life, Purushartha. We'll take the third sloka tomorrow. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Thank you. Dhanyavad.
Thank you very much, Bindoji. I've opened the chat and hand raising. If you have any follow-up questions or clarifications.
Namaste Venkat.
I think it looks like you have some throat issue today.
Yes.
Okay, so we can keep it for tomorrow, Bindoji.
No, if it's a simple one, we can go ahead.
Okay, so this what come to my mind, this light being the transmission medium, right? That is so interesting, because there is not even in a grossest light, this light as a medium with there are now fiber optic cables, no loss of transmission, absolutely. The information is transmitted without loss. While any other medium, like 6 years back when I was one of the first COVID patients, I was trying to get, some awareness about the disease. I was stating low grade 100-degree fever. It got published as 107 degrees in the newspaper. So by the time it hopped somewhere, I think it got messed up. The number was like a dangerous number. This is the nature of the mind versus the nature of the light as a transmission medium. Either this Atma Jyoti is the knowledge is always there eternally, while the mind that receives it, which is not pure, eventually corrupted, is the Manu. What has been told is the original, the pure mind. Is that the way to take it?
No, see, the transmission through parampara from person to person is when the knowledge is transmitted in its purity. In the sense that the intended meanings are the nature of the Upanishadic teaching. But if it is read, or if it is translated and then read, all these places, what happens is that the real intent which the teacher from his experience or anubhava is trying to explain will not be there in the printed matter or in a translation, etc. But when you hear it from the teacher, the modulation of the sound, the intent with which he is talking, the proximity to the teacher, if he is looking into your eyes and telling, there will be a direct connection, which we know in a similar example between the two lovers, when they look in each other's eyes and then they sit without even talking, they are transmitting love. Here, this is something much more than that. This is the Atma or the Brahman itself, the knowledge of reality itself. So the intent with which the Shishya or the next generation or the next person who is hearing will be lifted up in his experience by sharing the experience of the teacher. This is what it is told as the Jnana Agni, as Jnana as a fire which has got both why each Jnana is being given as a Agni or a fire. It has got two roles to play. One, it enlightens the listener of the Shishya. At the same time, the fire, when it is received in the Shishya, is the fire which burns down the Kama and Krodha, which is the, prohibitor or the one which created the false identity of the individuality. That is burned down by the fire of knowledge. That is why later you will hear it. Jnanagni sarva karmani bhasmasat kurute Arjuna. So that statement of that the knowledge can burn down our desires and wrong knowledge about that we are the physical, mental, intellectual body conscious. But we are the knower of the physical body, mental body, intellectual body, and that knower is not in the body. That knowledge of the knower is independent of the body. That independent knowledge need to be realized, even though the transmission is in the form of verbal explanation and all. That realization in the student has to taken place as a light of knowledge within himself. Then only he can burn down his desires and anger, etc. That is why the Jnana Agni has been the thing. So when Krishna says Aham Vivasvate Prokta, it is to indicate that the knowledge is like the sun. Now, in the Taittiriya, we saw that Akashat Vayu Vayor Agni.
Yeah.
But in the Brihadaranya Upanishad, it is straight away to Agni. It doesn't talk about Akasha or Vayu. So you can imagine that importance is to the Agni.
So this is the one of the Panchabhutas, or it is just light of knowledge is the nature of the source itself?
Light of knowledge itself, the source itself. If you remember, if you remember the Ishavasya Upanishad, Hiranmaya Patrena, that shloka, is showing.
Correct.
Yeah, you remember that?
Yes, Melaji.
Yeah, that is what is being referred here.
Oh, great. That means the Guru is the light of knowledge.
Yes.
For Shishya to receive it, it is like, that lover example was great. It is like a complete surrender.
Yes.
Hence, further, that entirety will be recognized. This is Prakasha Vimarsha only, right, Bindoji, in a way?
Yes.
So Vimarsha is happening at a mind level, but it is getting the entire transmission. Recognition is at the receiving end.
Yeah, that is why we said, Manase Vedam Aptavyam. When it is said that, or yet Sakshat Aparokshadam Brahma, or even in the Taittiriya that Yato Vacho Nivartande Aprapya Manasasaha, that when the mind is free from the word, dependency on the word, the mind becomes no mind, and in that mind, when it is leaving the dependency on the words and the forms or any references, the knowledge arises in the same mind when it is not depending upon the words. Because the moment the words and everything is there, it is in the Vyavahara. But in the Vyavahara, in the empirical or transmission, in the phenomenal world. But in the pure knowledge is not having any word nor any form to explain. It is pure experience. Because of its pure experience, it is equated to the fire. Therefore, that knowledge of the fire of knowledge.
Okay. This is the Chidabhasa, given that entirety, the complete reflection was the initiation.
Yes.
Okay, that solves a lot of it actually, Binduji, in the transmission. Yeah, receive without any bias.
Yes.
Okay. I think that solves a lot. That Manu is that reflected, right?
Right.
Okay. Now, I think this is nice, Binduji. I think then the Ishwaku and all will follow. That's a primary Manu is a fundamental receiver. Okay.
Yes.
I think this is highly coded, Binduji, then.
Yeah, it's highly coded, this thing. That is why we need Shankaracharya type of people who have understood it in the proper sense to write the Bhashya for me to explain or for the teachers to explain nowadays. Otherwise, if you just read the shlokas alone, you will not be able to decode it. And that was the problem for the earlier commentators also before Shankaracharya. That's why Shankaracharya said that there was inconsistency in their Bhashyas, which I am trying to correct it, he said.
On the outset, it says, one to another, which is not the case here. Thanks, Binduji.
Yeah. Thank you, Venkat. Prakash, you can close, I think. We'll continue tomorrow.
Yes. Thanks everyone for coming. Tomorrow we'll continue at 8:30 p.m. IST. And since this is the beginning of chapter 4, so the replay of this room will be available here in Clubhouse. But the other replays are available on the YouTube channel, Advaita Retold. So if you want to do the Sravana Manana and get the continuity for the next class, it should be only on Clubhouse, this room. The rest are available on the other channels shared in the chat. And over to you, Bindoji. Thank you very much to close the room.
Thank you, Prakash. Thank you, Venkat, for your question. And thank you all for listening. We'll continue our journey into the fourth chapter tomorrow with the third verse. Hari Om. Good night.
Good night.